welcome to Book Circle. I'm Earl Wajenberg. This time we're going to conclude our reading of Lilith by George MacDonald. Our narrator, Mr. Vane, has lain down in the house of death with Adam and Eve, and now has arisen to find them greeting him and ready to send him on his way. I kneeled and humbly thanked the three for helping me to die. Lona knelt beside me, and they all breathed upon us. "Hark, I hear the sun," said Adam. I listened. He was coming with the rush as of 1,000 times 10,000 far-off wings, with the roar of a molten and flaming world millions upon millions of miles away. His approach was a crescendo chord of 100 harmonies. The three looked at each other and smiled, and that smile went floating heavenward, a 3-petaled flower, the family's morning thanksgiving. From their mouths and their faces it spread over their bodies and shone through their garments. Ere I could say, "Lo, they change," Adam and Eve stood before me, the angels of the resurrection, and Mara was the Magdalene with them at the sepulchre. The countenance of Adam was like lightning, and Eve held a napkin that flung flakes of splendor about the place. A wind began to moan in pulsing gusts. "You hear his wings now," said Adam, and I knew he did not mean the wings of the morning. "It is the great shadow stirring to depart," he went on. "Wretched creature, he has himself within him and cannot rest." "But is there not in him something deeper yet?" I asked. "Without a substance," he answered, "a shadow cannot be, yea, or without a light behind the substance." He listened for a moment, then called out with a glad smile, "Hearken to the golden cock. Silent and motionless for millions of years, he has stood on the clock of the universe. Now at last he is flapping his wings. Now he will begin to crow, and at intervals will men hear him until the dawn of the day eternal." I listened. Far away, as in the heart of an aeonian silence, I heard the clear, jubilant outcry of the golden throat. It hurled defiance at death and the dark, sang infinite hope and coming calm. It was the expectation of the creature finding at last a voice, the cry of a chaos that would be a kingdom. Then I heard a great flapping. "The black bat has flown," said Mara. "Amen, golden bird of God," cried Adam, and the words rang through the house of silence and went up into the airy regions. At his amen, like doves arising on wings of silver from among the potsherds, up sprang the little ones on their knees on their beds, calling aloud, "Crow, crow again, golden cock," as if they had both seen and heard him in their dreams. Then each turned and looked at the sleeping bedfellow, gazed a moment with loving eyes, kissed the silent companion of the night, and sprang from the couch. The little ones who had lain down beside my father and mother gazed blank and sad for a moment at their empty places, then slid slowly to the floor. There they fell into each other's arms, as if then first each by each other's eyes assured they were alive and awake. Suddenly spying Lona, they came running, radiant with bliss, to embrace her. Odu, catching sight of the leopardess at the feet of the princess, bounded to her next, and throwing an arm over the great sleeping head, fondled and kissed it. wake up, darling," he cried. "It is time to wake." The leopardess did not move. "She has slept herself cold," he said to Mara with an upcast look of appealing consternation. "She is waiting for the princess to wake, my child," said Mara. Odo looked at the princess and saw beside her, still asleep, 2 of his companions. He flew at them. Wake up," he cried, and pushed and pulled, now this one, now that. But soon he began to look troubled, and turned with me misty eyes. "They will not wake," he said. "Why are they so cold?" "They too are waiting for the princess," I answered. He stretched across and laid his hand on her face. "She is cold too. What is it?" he cried, and looked round in wondering dismay. Adam went to him. "Her wake is not ripe yet," he said. "She is busy forgetting. When she has forgotten enough to remember enough, then she will soon be ripe and awake." "And remember?" "Yes, but not too much at once, though." "But the golden cock has crown," argued the child, and felt again upon his companions. Peter, Crispy," he cried. "Wake up, Peter! Wake up, Crispy! We're all awake but you two. The gold cock has crown so loud the sun is awake and coming. Why won't you wake?" But Peter would not wake, and neither would Crispy, and Odu wept outright at last. "Let them sleep, darling," said Adam. You would not like the princess to wake and find nobody. They're quite happy. So is the leopardess." He was comforted, and wiped his eyes as if he had been all his life used to weeping and wiping, though now first he had tears wherewith to weep, soon to be wiped away altogether. We followed Eve to the cottage. There she offered us neither bread nor wine, but stood radiantly desiring our departure. So, with never a word of farewell, we went out. The horse and the elephants were at the door waiting for us. We were too happy to mount them, and they followed us. Chapter 45. The Journey Home. It had ceased to be dark. We walked in a dim twilight, breathing through the dimness of the breath of spring. A wondrous change had passed upon the world, or was it not rather that a change more marvelous had taken place in us? Without light enough in the sky or the air to reveal anything, every heather bush, every small shrub, every blade of grass was perfectly visible, either by light that went out from it, as fire from the bush Moses saw in the desert, or by light that went out of our eyes. Nothing cast a shadow. All things interchanged a little light. Every growing thing showed me by its shape and color its indwelling idea, the informing thought, that is, which was its being, and sent it out. My bare feet seemed to love every plant they trod upon. The world and my being, its life and mine, were one. The microcosm and macrocosm were at length atoned, at length in harmony. I lived in everything, everything entered and lived in me. To be aware of a thing was to know its life at once, and mine, to know whence we came, and where we were at home, was to know that we were all what we are because another is what he is. Sense after sense, hitherto asleep, awoke in me, sense after sense indescribable, because no correspondent words, no likenesses or imaginations exist wherewithal to describe them. Full indeed, yet ever expanding, ever making room to receive, was the conscious being where things kept entering by so many open doors. When a little breeze brushed a bush of heather, When a little breeze brushing a bush of heather set its purple bells a-ringing, I was myself in the joy of the bells, myself in the joy of the breeze to which responded their sweet tintinning, myself in the joy of the sense and of the soul that received all the joys together. To everything glad I lent the hall of my being wherein to revel. I was a peaceful ocean upon which the groundswell of a living joy was continually lifting new waves. Yet was the joy never the same joy, the eternal joy with 10,000s of changing forms. Life was a cosmic holiday. Now I knew that life and truth were one, that life mere and pure is in itself bliss, that where being is not bliss, it is not life, but life in death. Every inspiration of the dark wind that blew where it listed went out a sigh of thanksgiving. At last I lived, and nothing could touch my life. My darling walked beside me, and we were on our way home to the Father. So much was ours ere the first sun rose upon our freedom. What must not the eternal day bring with it? We came to the fearful hollow where once had wallowed the monsters of the earth. It was indeed, as I had beheld it in my dream, a lovely lake. I gazed into its pellucid depths. A whirlpool had swept out the soil in which the abortions burrowed, and at the bottom lay visible the whole horrid brood. A dim greenish light pervaded the crystalline water, and revealed every hideous form beneath it. Coiled in spires, folded in layers, knotted on themselves, or extended long and large, they weltered in motionless heaps, shapes more fantastic in ghoulish blasting dismay than ever wine-sodden brain of exhausted poet fevered into misbeing. He who dived in the swirling maelstrom saw none to compare with them in horror. Tentacular convolutions, tumid bulges, glaring orbs of sepian deformity would have looked to him innocence beside such incarnations of hatefulness. Every head the wicked flower that, bursting from an abominable stalk, perfected its evil significance. Not one of them moved as we passed, but they were not dead. So long as exist men and women of unwholesome mind, that lake will still be peopled with loathsomeness. But hark the herald of the sun, the auroral wind, softly trumpeting his approach. The master minister of the human tabernacle is at hand. Heaping before his prow a huge ripple-fretted wave of crimson and gold, he rushes aloft as if new launched from the urging hand of his Maker into the upper sea, pauses and looks down on the world. White raving storm of molten metals, he is but a coal from the altar of the Father's never-ending sacrifice to his children. See every little flower straighten its stalk, lift up its neck, and with outstretched head stand expectant. Something more than the sun, greater than the light, is coming, none the less surely coming that it is long upon the road. What matters today or tomorrow or 10,000 years to life himself, to love himself? He is coming, and the necks of all humanity are stretched out to see him come. Every morning they will thus outstretch themselves. Every evening they will droop and wait until he comes. Is this but an air-drawn vision? When he comes, will he indeed find them watching thus? It was a glorious resurrection morning. The night had been spent in preparing it. The children went gamboling before, and the beasts came after us. Fluttering butterflies, darting dragonflies, hovered or shot hither and thither about our heads, a cloud of colors and flashes, now descending upon us like a snowstorm of rainbow flakes, now rising into the humid air like a rolling vapor of embodied odors. It was a summer day more like itself, that is, more ideal, than ever man that had not died found summer day in any world. I walked on the new earth, under the new heaven, and found them the same as the old, save that now they opened their minds to me, and I saw into them. Now the soul of everything I met came out to greet me and make friends with me, telling me we came from the same and meant the same. I was going to him, they said, with whom they always were, and with whom they always meant. They were, they said, lightnings that took shape as they flashed from his to him. The dark rocks drank like sponges the rays that showered upon them. The great world soaked up the light and sent out the living. 2 joy fires were Lona and I. Earth breathed heavenward her sweet-savored smoke. We breathed homeward our longing desires. For Thanksgiving, our very consciousness was that. We came to the channels once so dry and weariful. They ran and flashed and foamed with living water that shouted in its gladness. Far as the eye could see, all was a rushing, roaring, dashing river of water made vocal by its rocks. We did not cross it, but walked in glory and in joy up its right bank until we reached the great cataract at the foot of the sandy river, where, roaring and swirling and dropping sheer, the river divided into its 2 branches. There we climbed the height and found no desert. Through grassy plains, between grassy banks, flowed the deep, wide, silent river, full to the brim. Then first to the little ones was revealed the glory of God in the limpid flow of water. Instinctively they plunged and swam, and the beasts followed them. The desert rejoiced and blossomed as the rose. Wide forests had sprung up, their whole undergrowth flowering shrubs peopled with songbirds. Every thicket gave birth to a rivulet, every rivulet to its water song. The place of the buried hand gave no sign. Beyond and still beyond, the river came up in full volume from afar. Up and up we went, now along grassy margin, and now through forests of gracious trees. The grass grew sweeter and its flowers more lovely and various as we went. The trees grew larger, and the wind fuller of messages. We came at length to a forest whose trees were greater, grander, and more beautiful than any we had yet seen. Their live pillars upheaved a thick embowed roof, betwixt whose leaves and blossoms hardly a sunbeam filtered. Into the rafters of this aerial vault the children climbed, and through them went scrambling and leaping in a land of bloom, shouting to the unseen elephants below, and hearing their trumpet their replies. The conversations between them Lona understood, while I but guessed at them blunderingly. The little ones chased the squirrels, and the squirrels, frolicking, drew them on, always at length allowing themselves to be caught and petted. Often would some bird, lovely in plumage and form, light upon one of them, sing a song of what was coming, and fly away. Chapter 46. The City. Lona and I, who walked below, heard at last a great shout overhead, and in a moment or two the little ones began to come dropping down from the foliage with the news that, climbing to the top of a tree yet taller than the rest, they had descried far across the plain a curious something on the side of a solitary mountain, which mountain, they said, rose and rose until the sky gathered thick to keep it down and knocked its top off. It may be a city, they said, but it is not at all like Bulica. I went up to look, and saw a great city ascending into blue clouds where I could not distinguish mountain from sky, or cloud or rock from dwelling. Cloud and mountain and sky, palace and precipice, mingled in a seeming chaos of broken shadow and shine. I descended, the little ones came with me, and together we sped on faster. They grew yet merrier as they went, leading the way and never looking behind them. The river grew lovelier and lovelier until I knew that never before had I seen real water. Nothing in this world is more than like it. By and by we could from the plain see the city among the blue clouds. But other clouds were gathering around a lofty tower, or was it a rock, that stood above the city nearest the crest of the mountain. Gray and dark gray and purple, they writhed in confused contrariant motions and tossed up a vaporous foam, while spots of them gyrated like whirlpools. At length issued a dazzling flash, which seemed for a moment to play about the little ones in front of us. Blinding darkness followed, but through it we heard their voices, low with delight. "Did you see?" "I saw." "What did you see?" "The most beautiful man. I heard him speak." "I didn't. What did he say?" Here answered the smallest and most childish of the voices, that of Luva. "He said, 'You're all mine, little ones. Come along.'" I had seen the lightning, but heard no words. Lona saw and heard with the children. The second flash came, and my eyes, though not my ears, were opened. The great quivering light was compact of angel faces. They lamped themselves visible and vanished. A third flash came. Its substance and radiance were human. "I see my mother," I cried. "I see lots of mothers," said Luva. Once more the cloud flashed, all kinds of creatures, horses and elephants, lions and dogs, oh, such beasts and such birds, great birds whose wings gleamed singly every color gathered in sunset or rainbow, little birds whose feathers sparkled as with all the precious stones of the hoarding earth, silvery cranes, red flamingos, opal pigeons, peacocks gorgeous in gold and green and blue, jewelly hummingbirds, great winged butterflies, lithe-volumed creeping things, all in one heavenly flash. "I see that serpents grow birds here as caterpillars used to grow butterflies," remarked Lona. "I saw my white pony that died when I was a child. I needn't have been so sorry. I should have just waited," I said. Thunder, clap, or roll there had been none, and now came a sweet rain, filling the atmosphere with a caressing coolness. We breathed deep and stepped out with stronger strides. The falling drops flashed the colors of all the waked-up gems of the earth, and a mighty rainbow spanned the city. The blue clouds gathered thicker, the rain fell in torrents, the children exulted and ran. It was all we could do to keep them in sight. With silent, radiant roll, the river swept onward, filling to the margin its smooth, soft, yielding channel. For instead of rock or shingle or sand, it flowed over grass in which grew primroses and daisies, crocuses and narcissi, pimpernels and anemones, a starry multitude, large and bright through the brilliant water. The river had gathered no turbid cloudiness from the rain, nor even a tinge of yellow or brown. The delicate mass shone with a pale Berlin gleam that ascended from its deep, dainty bed. Drawing nearer to the mountain, we saw that the river came from its very peak, and rushed in full volume through the main street of the city. It descended to the gate by a stair of deep and wide steps mingled with porphyry and serpentine, which continued to the foot of the mountain. There, arriving, we found shallower steps on both banks leading up to the gate and along the ascending street. Without the briefest halt, the little ones ran straight up to the stair of the gate, which stood open. Outside on the landing sat the portress, a woman-angel of dark visage, leaning her shadowed brow on her idle hand. The children rushed upon her, covering her with caresses, and ere she understood, they had taken heaven by surprise and were already in the city, still mounting the stair by the side of the descending torrent. A great angel, attended by a company of shining ones, came down to meet and receive them, but merrily evading them all, up still they ran. In merry dance, however, a group of woman angels descended upon them, and in a moment they were fettered in heavenly arms. The radiance carried them away, and I saw them no more. "Ah," said the mighty angel, continuing his descent to meet us, who were now almost at the gate and within hearing of his word, "this is well. Those are soldiers to take heaven itself by storm. I hear of a horde of black bats on the frontiers. These will make short work of such." Seeing the horse and the elephants clambering up behind us, "Take those animals to the royal stables," he added. "There tend them, then turn them into the king's forest." "Welcome home," he said to us, bending low with the sweetest smile. Immediately he turned and led the way higher. The scales of his armor flashed like flakes of lightning. Thought cannot form itself to tell what I felt, thus received by the officers of heaven. All I wanted and knew not must be on its way to me. We stood for a moment at the gate whence issued the roaring, radiant river. I know not whence came the stones that fashioned it, but among them I saw the prototypes of all the gems I had loved on earth, far more beautiful than they, for these were living stones, such in which I saw not the intent alone, but the intender too, not the idea alone, but the embodier present, the operant outsender. Nothing in this kingdom is dead, nothing was mere, nothing only a thing. We went up through the city and passed out. There was no wall on the upper side, but a huge pile of broken rocks, upsloping like the moraine of an eternal glacier, and through the openings between the rocks the river came billowing out. On their top I could dimly discern what seemed 3 or 4 great steps of a stair, disappearing in a cloud white as snow, and above the steps I saw, but with my mind's eye only, as it were a grand old chair, the throne of the Ancient of Days. Over and under and between those steps issued plenteously, unceasingly newborn, the river of the water of life. The great angel could guide us no farther. Those rocks we must ascend alone. My heart beating with hope and desire, I held faster the hand of my Lona, and we began to climb. But soon we let each other go, to use hands as well as feet in the toilsome ascent of the huge stones. At length we drew near the cloud, which hung down the steps like the borders of a garment, passed through the fringe, and entered the deep folds. A hand, warm and strong, laid hold of mine, and drew me to a little door with a golden lock. The door opened, the hand let mine go, and pushed me gently through. I turned quickly, and saw the board of a large book in the act of closing behind me. I stood alone in my library. Chapter 47. The Endless Ending. As yet I have not found Lona, but Mara is much with me. She has taught me many things, and is teaching me more. Can it be that that last waking also was in the dream, that I am still in the chamber of death, asleep and dreaming, not yet ripe enough to wake? Or can it be that I did not go to sleep outright and heartily, and so have come awake too soon? If that waking was itself but a dream, surely it was a dream of a better waking yet to come, and I have not been the sport of a false vision. Such a dream must have yet lovelier truth at the heart of its dreaming. In moments of doubt I cry, could God himself create such lovely things as I dreamed? Whence then came thy dream, answers hope. Out of my dark self into the light of my consciousness. But whence first came thy dark self? Rejoins hope. My brain was its mother, and the fever of my blood its father. Say rather, suggests hope, thy brain was the violin whence it issued, and the fever in thy blood the bow that drew it forth. But who made the violin, and who guided the bow across its strings? Say rather again, who set the songbirds each on its bough in the tree of life, and startled each in the order from its perch? Whence came the fantasia? Whence the life that danced thereto? Didst thou say in the dark of thy own unconscious self, let beauty be, let truth seem, and straightway beauty was, and truth but seemed? Man dreams and desires. God broods and wills and quickens. When a man dreams his own dream, he is the sport of his dream. When another gives it him, that other is able to fulfill it. I have never again sought the mirror. The hand sent me back. I will not go out again by that door. All the days of my appointed time will I wait till my change come. Now and then, when I look round on my books, they seem to waver as if a wind rippled their solid mass, and another world were about to break through. Sometimes, when I am abroad, a like thing takes place. The heaven and the earth, the trees and grass appear for a moment to shake as if about to pass away. Then, lo, they have settled again into their old familiar face. At times I seem to hear whisperings around me, as if some that loved me were talking of me. But when I would distinguish the words, they cease, and all is very still. I know not whether these things rise in my brain or enter it from without. I do not seek them. They come, and I let them go. Strange, dim memories, which will not abide identification, often through misty windows of the past, look out upon me in the broad daylight. But I never dream now. It may be, notwithstanding, that when most awake I am only dreaming the more. But when I wake at last into that life which, as a mother her child, carries this life in its bosom, I shall know that I wake, and shall doubt no more. I wait. Asleep or awake, I wait. Novalis says, "Our life is no dream, but it should and will perhaps become one." Thank you.